Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Adib bin Nuaifuddin from Campus Bukit Besi, Uitm Cawangan, Terengganu, where now I will present a topic of mine is chemistry about artificial coloring, and I will be supervised by Madam Intan Nur Eliza Fadlina binti Kamarudin. So let's go into deep. So firstly, I'm taking an industrial hygiene course, which the code is AS124, and my campus is stated at campus Bukit Besi, Dungun, Terengganu, and I'm from Selangor. I'm Selangorian. So this is what things I like. So this is the contents that I will be talking on our video today. So this is one of it. Let's go on the number one. So introduction, what is artificial coloring? Where artificial coloring means coloring that contains any dye or pigmentation which is manufactured by a synthesis process or other artifice that extracts a natural dye or pigmentation from plants or other materials which dye and pigments are formed, such as chlorophylls from plants that are produced by photosynthesis process. Artificial colors are a combination of 7 artificial dyes that are being approved by the food authorities such as the Food and Drug Administration (FDA), where they analyze a representative sample of each batch of the color additive to ensure it meets the requirement, identity, and the specification before it can be used. The example colors that are being approved by the FDA such as the blue 1, blue 2, citrus red 2, orange B, red 3, red 40, and yellow 5. Okay, now we go about the facts about artificial coloring, where they are made most artificial colorings are originated from coal tar, where it's compound coal, but most of the synthetics today that are made are derived from petroleum or crude oil, where crude oils are the byproducts of petroleum that are made in oil plantation, which is not good for our health to be consumed if we know. So we have two types of coloring. First are the natural/organic dye, where a soluble dye where it can be extracted from natural sources such as fruits, flowers, leaves, roots, barks, and many more that are organic related. Where the synthetic dyes are synthesized in a laboratory by the use of chemicals such as raw materials obtained from petroleum, but they use the natural types of coloring as a reference for them to create a new color, and it has these side effects where it could increase your where it has high effects in the food industry, where it could cause cancer if you be consumed on a daily basis, and it could cause you to get obesity problems. For example, if you ate or consume a specific dye that is red 3 on a daily basis, it could be controversial, where it could lead to risk on thyroid tumors by scientists, where it has been tested by rats. And some of the allergies could also trigger an allergic reaction to a minority of people. And this is the light spectrum of blue and red dye, where the blue dye can produce some colors based on the transmitted light, such as green, blue, and violet. But for red, if the light is transmitted by the color red, we could see the color red, green, and yellow. So this is one of the 3 findings that I found based on the internet findings. First are the basic principle of color chemistry, where we could divide dye and pigments, where dye and pigments are not the same, where dye are mostly organic compounds and dyes possesses a color that has a conjugate system, which is a structure alternating double and single bonds, meaning it is more to organic compounds related, where we could talk it on another chapter, meaning a structure of chemical where exhibits resonance of an electron, which is a stabilizing force in organic compounds. So when any of these structures features is lacking from the molecular structure, the color is lost. They lose their pigmentation by a long term, but eventually they will go gray because they lose their pigmentation. In addition to chromophores, most dye also contains a group known as usochromes, where a color helpers to help them stay longer by withstanding amino acids for a daily basis if they're being exposed. But if we're talking about dyes, if we're talking about pigmentation are not dyes, where that we can divert them by dyes are soluble in water and is an organic solvent. Dyes are usually colored substrates which they have an affinity, which means a term that is likely to combine with another color or another substance, which is liquid or physical. But pigments are insoluble, which means it cannot be soluble or transmigrate to a water, where it will never transmigrate and it will never combine with any liquid forms. And pigments can be used to color any polymeric substrate such as a banknote, where it could last for a long period of times, where we can see most banknotes can be a keepsake for us to remember. But amazingly, the banknotes are still visible. Next are the molecular formula and the boundings of dyes, such as blue one. We can see the molecular formula where it has carbon 37, hydrogen 34, natrium 2, sodium 2, oxygen 9, and sulfur 3. And for citrus red, we can find their molecular formula for carbon 18, hydrogen 16, natrium 2, and oxygen 3. And for blue 2, we usually found it on pet foods, on beverages or candy. But I could say we can mostly find them on our daily basis candy, such as our Coca-Cola candies. But without further ado, the molecular formulas are carbon 12, hydrogen 19, natrium 3, and oxygen 5. Next are orange B, which is mostly found in sausages. But sausages are not good for life, but we could talk that later. But this is a molecular formula where it has carbon 22, hydrogen 16, natrium 4, sodium 2, oxygen 9, and sulfur 2. And for red 3, we usually found it on candy, on baked goods, and etc., where I could say it is mostly found on bakes to make red velvet cakes. And the molecular formula for the red 3 is C2, is carbon 20, hydrogen 60, hydrogen 6, iodine 4, sodium 2, and oxygen 5. For red 40, we could find them in most soda pop, just like Coca-Cola, to make the color go black. But the molecular formula is still the same, with carbon 18, hydrogen 14, natrium 2, sodium 2, oxygen 4, and sulfur 2. But if we see at yellow 5, that we can mostly see on gelatins, where we make jellies and candy and pet foods, where the molecular formula is carbon 16, hydrogen 9, natrium 4, sodium 3, oxygen 9, and sulfur 2. Most fun fact, most of the color dyes contains a certain amount or a little amount of sulfur in it. So this is one of the methods for artificial dye to be diluted or to be mixed into foods. Firstly, we need to gather all the necessary ingredients, including the artificial colorant, in either liquid or powder form. Then we weigh the colorant and put it in a mixing tank to combine the colorant with the food ingredients and control the process. So we can let the coolant break down to individual ions and molecules for them to be associated or be combined with the polar food molecules that are being mixed, thus not making clumps of colorant that are not being mixed by the foods. And lastly, the final process where we could add another step where it is necessary to bake or to be processed first before being produced to other manufacturers. So for my discussion, based on the findings that have been found for artificial dye, we could see a lot of advantages and disadvantages, but we could see in another way where from the cosmetic industry it benefits from making new makeup products with various colors, such as the color red. We have many variants or types of red can be chosen by customer preferences. And for motor industries, they can have a mass majority of colors of choices for their clients to choose, such as for the body parts and interior colors. Because for cars it is free for us to change the color of the car, but we need to choose it correctly, because making a car color needs a process of layering. Makes a lot of layering to make the colors of your desire to be more appeal. And lastly, for the fashion industry, where they could design new products with a new variety of artificial colors to be choose from. So this is one of the examples for the motor industries, where most of the professional auto workshop design and make new colors that are inspired to make it a reality to fulfill their clients' expectation. This includes the interior, rims, door, wings, and the sharp corners of the car, and many more. They can be adjusted and be colored by artificial dyes and artificial coloring, but most of them needs many layering to make the color appeal on sunlight. Next, we can see for cosmetic industry, where we could benefit by making a lot of products, a lot of color variants that could benefit their clients by improving their looks and facial looks by appearing certain cosmetic products like lipstick, makeup, and etc., by making them more appeal and more beautiful on a daily basis. And talking about the examples, we could see the effects on the health for the food industry sector. So we could find the effects on Bluetooth, where we can find the evidence on, we tested it on rats, where it could cause brain cancer for male rats only, but the FDA concluded there are no reasonable certainty of no harm. So it makes it safe to consume Bluetooth, but we need to make a precautious act as it has its side effects to animals around me. But for orange bee, the FDA approved it only on sausages casein because it contains a high dose of harmful toxin that could cause the liver and bile duct. And for red 40, it is a color that can cause allergy reactions by consuming it, just like the normal typical allergy reaction like rashes, swollen body parts, and many more, including itching. And for yellow 5, it is found that it has a hypersensitive reaction caused to children, where it produces an aspirin sensitive person. It produces a aspirin sensitive neuron to the children to make that children hyperactive, and that is a bad sign, where it may contaminate, where it could contribute to cause cancer, where it contains benzene and aminophylline, because those two are very toxic for a young age to be consumed. And these are the effects for in the environment, where we could see the soil contaminant, where improper disposal of waste containing artificial dyes such as dieffluence is a byproduct of making artificial color, or unused dye materials that can lead to soil contamination. This can affect the fertility, and the health of the soil, impacting the plant's life and our ecosystem. Non-biodegradability is a thing where some artificial dye resists to biodegradation, leading to a long-term environmental persistence. This lack of biodegradability contributes to a accumulation of synthetic chemicals in the environment, raising concerns about their lasting impact. Where giving you an example for a plastic bag lasting in our soil for millions of years because the soil is unable to digest. And we going next is agricultural biodiversity impact, where the runoff of dye contaminated water can affect the agricultural lands, leading to soil contamination, where this may impact crops, poses risk to food and safety security, where the water bodies affected by dye runoff may experience a decline in biodiversity, as the chemical can be toxic to the aquatic organism. This can disrupt the balance of the ecosystem and harm the fishes and plant and other aquatic lives. So in conclusion, I could say the disadvantages outweighs the advantages of artificial coloring, where thus making a public concern for consumption. But it is also not biodegradable, which leads to soil and water contamination, where it threatens the ecosystem. But even though it has its side effects in the food industries and to the soil, we could see the advantages of artificial coloring in the fashion, pharmaceutical, cosmetic industry, and many more industry not related to food and soil that could benefit from them by making the colors that they're producing more unique. And lastly, my recommendation, where I could recommend industry and businesses to have a rigorous testing and safety standards, where they could invest in comprehensive and scheduled testing and safety assessment of artificial coloring before incorporating them into products, and so they could lessen out the risks of their clients or their consumers to have side effects. Plus, we could have diversification of color sources, where we could encourage businesses to explore a variety of color sources which include natural alternatives, where we could lessen out the process of synthesis. If we look on the manufacturers or regulators sides, we could give a recommendation for product innovations, such as encourage businesses to invest in research and innovation to develop a new technology and a formula that minimize the potential health and environmental risks from the artificial coloring synthesis. And we could regular review and adaptation to advocate periodic reviews of the safety and impact of the artificial coloring, where we could consider new synthesis finding and technological advancement based on the results that have been found. And so we could make other alternatives by making it less harmful for consumption. And lastly, for the consumers, where we need to make an educational campaign to provide information on how to interpret products label, understand the safety assessment, and make informed decisions about that product that they are consumed on a daily basis. And so they could lessen out the risk of getting cancer or getting a brain tumor. And lastly is a sustainable practice, where we could promote environmentally responsible practice in the manufacture and disposal of the product containing artificial coloring, where we could lessen up the damage by artificial coloring by sorting the artificial products in a certain place in a certain way, and so we could lessen out the damage to our soil. And I think that's all from me, and I really thank you guys for hearing me for 19 minutes already. And without further ado, bye bye.